There's a specific category of Second World War fieldcraft that, well, rarely shows up in documentaries or school history books. These weren't broad strategies or general survival habits. These were highly effective, frontline tested tricks that commanders considered so valuable they didn't want the enemy picking them up. They came from the hard lessons of North Africa, the frozen forests of the Ardennes, and the mud-soaked killing fields across Europe and the Pacific. These tricks weren't about gaining an edge on the battlefield. They were about ensuring a man lived long enough to fight again tomorrow. And because they worked so well, many were deliberately kept within units, guarded like miniature classified secrets. Here on The Prepper Historian, we're going to dig into 7 of those survival tactics, not as trivia, but as practical knowledge. If you're the kind of historian who likes to connect past lessons to real-world application, this is one of those episodes that brings real value. These tactics were methods men used under the worst conditions imaginable, and every one of them translates into usable skills for anyone interested in preparedness, wilderness survival, or historical fieldcraft. Soldiers learned how to hide their scent as much as their bodies, because predators on the battlefield weren't always human. In the Pacific, certain units learned to mask their scent with smoke, crushed vegetation, or mud before night patrols. Not because it helped against the Japanese, but because it helped against the feral pigs, dogs and wildlife that gave away positions by reacting to human scent. This was one of those tricks that spread quietly through platoons. In modern survival, scent discipline matters when navigating remote areas with territorial wildlife. Hunters and long-distance trekkers still use vegetation oils or smoke exposure to reduce human odour. For practical use, expose clothing to smoke for several minutes after making a fire, or rub local crushed foliage onto outer clothing layers. Some units discovered that digging a shallow, angled trench kept a man alive longer than any foxhole. Before official manuals picked it up, frontline engineers and infantry found that trenches dug at a slight slope allowed blast waves to travel past, instead of collapsing directly inward. Small, angled slit trenches saved countless lives. This wasn't about comfort. It was pure physics, and once units realized its value, they preferred these trenches even when regulations said otherwise. For a modern parallel, anyone practicing field setups can apply the same principle by building shelters or cover positions with angled deflection surfaces. Even in civilian life, angled snow walls or windbreaks minimize collapse risk and direct force upward or away. Certain soldiers discovered how to keep body heat stable by insulating the kidneys before anything else. Before cold weather doctrine caught up, troops in Russia learned the hard way that cold kidneys shut the body down faster than cold hands or even cold feet. Men stuffed rags, straw, even folded scarves into the small of their backs under their belts. It was done quietly because it looked odd, but it kept men functional. Modern preppers can replicate the benefits by applying an extra layer around the lumbar region during cold exposure. Placing a folded shirt or cloth behind the kidneys inside your clothing is a simple but effective adaptation that retains body heat more efficiently than adding a layer to arms or legs. Units discovered that boiling water twice removed more contaminants than any chemical powder they carried. In many theatres, especially in Burma and the Pacific, soldiers learned that water sources were so saturated with organic matter that a single boil only stunned parasites instead of killing them. A second boil, after cooling for a few minutes, reduced stomach illness dramatically. Commanders didn't advertise this because it slowed operations, but wise soldiers practiced it anyway. For modern survivalists, the double boil method remains effective when dealing with stagnant or questionable water. The steps are simple. Bring water to a full rolling boil for 1 minute, cool slightly, then boil again. It's a small addition of time for a huge reduction in risk. Some troops mastered the art of controlled silence by syncing movement to environmental noise. This wasn't official doctrine, it was battlefield wisdom. Soldiers in Italy synchronized steps with wind gusts, distant artillery, or even aircraft overhead to mask sound. It allowed patrols to move shockingly close to enemy lines. This trick is still used by experienced trackers and woodsmen. Match your footsteps to natural noise cycles. In practical use today, a hunter or reconnaissance-minded survivalist can apply this by waiting for wind pulses or distant environmental sounds before shifting position. It's not glamorous, but it's one of the most effective stealth skills ever developed on the battlefield. Many World War II soldiers discovered that sleeping in rotation, not in long stretches, dramatically lowered frostbite cases. It wasn't an official order, but as soon as platoons saw the results, they kept the practice within their circles. The method was simple. Rotate sleeping positions every hour, shifting limbs and forcing circulation. It prevented tissue freeze and reduced the shock of waking in extreme cold. For modern application, anyone caught out camping in unexpected cold can use hourly rotation, especially if sharing limited insulation. It's exhausting, but it preserves body function far better than attempting a full night's sleep. One of the most guarded tricks was the practice of drying feet with friction rather than waiting for air or fire. Soldiers who fought in wet conditions, whether Italy, New Guinea or northern France, learned that rubbing feet vigorously with a dry cloth for 30 seconds restored circulation far more reliably than air drying. It prevented trench foot, restored nerve response and kept men marching. Commanders didn't broadcast the trick, but veterans passed it down informally. Today, hikers and preppers facing persistent moisture can use the same technique. Aggressively rub the feet dry, warm them with movement, then apply fresh socks or inserts. These 7 survival tricks were powerful because they came from frontline necessity, not instruction manuals. They kept men alive under some of the harshest conditions in modern warfare, and they still hold value for anyone studying survival from a historical or practical perspective. If you found this breakdown useful and want more history-backed survival knowledge, make sure to subscribe to the Prepper Historian, share the video, and help keep these lessons alive for the next generation of serious history enthusiasts.